Last summer, I was working the day shift at Subway. My hours were about 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. at my location. Not sure if it's the same at other franchises. Another employee doesn't come in until around 9 o'clock, even though the store officially opens at 7 o'clock. On this particular day, the weather was gloomy, which is pretty unusual for California. I got to work like normal and hurried around making bread until 7 o'clock, when I had to unlock the doors. While darting in and out of the back room, I noticed a man with messy hair and a torn black t-shirt. It was raining outside, and since it was around 7 o'clock in the morning, I found that a little strange. I didn't pay him much mind at first, until I went out to set up some tables and saw him sitting on a bench about 30 feet away, just staring at me. That's when I started to feel creeped out. I was a 16-year-old girl working alone in a deserted area. I gave him a small nod to let him know I'd seen him looking, but his expression didn't change. I walked back into the store and decided to just try to forget about it. I got back to the 1,000 things I had to do in the back. While I was cutting tomatoes, I heard the front door slam. I peeked up at the angled mirrors we have to check if anyone's out front, and sure enough, he was there. Pretty soon, he started yelling in a deep, raspy voice. "Hello? I know you're in there. I saw you." I sighed, took off my gloves, put on my food service smile, and went out to ask him the usual question. "Hi, sorry I missed you. I was in the back. Would you like a sandwich?" He shook his head, but way more than what's normal. I asked, "What can I help you with then?" He looked around the store like some kind of crazy person, his eyes scanning everything. I was starting to get scared he might pull out a weapon, since his hands were in his pockets. Our store's right off the freeway, so it'd be easy for him to get away. "Phone. Do you have a phone? Can I call someone with your phone?" he asked. He sounded off. At the time, I didn't know it was against policy to let him use it. Looking back, even if I'd known, I probably would have handed it over anyway, just to stay safe. Sure," I said. I grabbed the phone from under the register and watched him pretend to dial a number. His conversation went something like this. "Hey, yeah, man, I got robbed last night, took everything. Are you coming? Okay, see you soon." His responses were too quick, and he didn't give his location. I realized he was faking the call, but I had no clue why. "Can I sit here? My buddy's coming for me," he asked. I hesitated, but nodded. I glanced down at the register and saw it was only 7:20. Nobody else would be around for a while. He took a seat in one of the chairs facing the counter and stared at me while I tried to act like he wasn't there. When he looked away, I got a better look at him. He was wearing a regular black t-shirt that looked like it had been sliced with scissors in a straight line across his chest. His shorts, socks, and beat-up Vans were all black too. He looked about 40, white, with a 5 o'clock shadow and a dirty face. Pretty soon, he looked back at me and said, "Yeah, I got robbed last night in the parking lot. They stole my wallet at knife point." I looked up, nodded, and said, "I'm sorry. Are you okay?" He shrugged and didn't answer. I offered him a cup of water, and he accepted. When he came over to get it, I noticed the cut in his shirt didn't show any skin underneath. I've cut up plenty of tees myself, and I know those kind of cuts. They were done on purpose, not from some random robbery. Then the timers for the bread and meatballs went off, startling me enough to make me jump. But him, a supposed robbery victim, he didn't flinch. He just kept staring out the window, waiting for his friend. That's when I started feeling like the robbery story was bullshit. I went to the back and kept working. I couldn't believe how slow the store was. No other customers had come in yet. It was already 8 o'clock. Then I got a text from my coworker, throwing up, "Nobody can come in till 11. Hope you aren't behind." I stared at my phone in disbelief. I was going to be alone for another 3 hours. Another timer went off, and I had to head back to the front. "Wow, you work hard, pretty girl," he said. I nodded and kept putting bread in the oven. "How old are you?" I turned around and saw he was leaning over the counter now. 16, I said, hoping he was just some nutcase who'd back off once he heard I wasn't legal. Instead, he smiled, showing yellow cracked teeth. I thought to myself, I should have called in sick. Young and beautiful, he said. Thank you. I replied, then rushed into the back. He stayed leaning over the counter, trying to peek in. What's a young miner doing working so early in the morning alone? He put a lot of emphasis on alone. A chill ran down my spine. I pulled out my cell phone quick and prayed my boyfriend was near his. I texted him, "Can you please call my work phone? There's a creepy man. If I don't pick up, I'm not okay. He's wearing all black, ripped t-shirt and shorts. Call 911 if I don't." 5 minutes later, he texted back, "Okay." The phone rang and I felt so relieved. I answered and pretended it was a co-worker saying she was on her way. I saw the guy's ears perk up. He moved back over by the window and started watching outside. I hoped my lie was working. I hung up and went back to prepping tomatoes. I glanced out and saw a beat-up brown van parked dead center in the lot. No cars around it. It was running, and I could see two men inside, one in a black hoodie, the other in a button-up shirt. I was so confused. Then I noticed the creepy guy was looking at them too. The man in black waved his hand out the window, and the creepy guy nodded back. My heart started pounding again. He got up and sauntered around the dining area, humming what I think was "Pop Goes the Weasel." I texted my boyfriend again about the van and the singing, and he told me to grab a knife from the back. I grabbed the sharpest one we had and waited. "You know what, hun? It's bad customer service to be in the back with a customer out here. Won't those cameras catch you?" he said, pointing at the 360-degree cameras the owner could monitor. I realized he was fishing to see if they worked. I texted my boyfriend to call 911 and have them come immediately. I peeked around the corner and saw he was at the register again. The brown van was now backed into a parking space right in front of the store's doors. He caught my stare and smirked. "Oh no, you aren't ready to meet my friends yet." I gripped my knife tighter. I had no escape. There were no emergency exits, no locks on the doors, and the manager's office was locked. If I got into one of the coolers, he'd just follow me in. I decided to laugh and play it off. If they've got big appetites and want a big order, then I guess you're right. His smile didn't budge. "What we crave isn't on the menu," he said. I smiled back, pretending I didn't get it, then turned and walked toward the fridge with my knife and phone. I stepped inside, held the handle, freezing my ass off, and prayed the cops would hurry up. After a few minutes, I slowly opened the door and heard his voice right behind it. He was in the back with me. "No need to hide, lovely. You're just easy to catch in there." I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. I slammed the door shut again and held it with all my strength. I felt him pulling. Then suddenly he stopped. I didn't fall for it and stayed in the cooler. A few minutes passed, then 10, and he didn't pull again. I cautiously pushed the door open, knife ready. The back room was empty. My heart was pounding, my palms clammy. I checked the mirrors, the freezer, every corner. He was gone. I looked outside and the van was gone too. It felt too good to be true. Both bathroom keys were still behind the counter. So I grabbed them and bolted to the women's restroom. Once inside, I locked it from the outside with the keys and waited another 15 minutes until I heard sirens. Beyond relieved, I came out and met the police. They searched the whole store, but found nothing. The van, the creepy guy, and the men inside it were nowhere to be found. I told the cops everything. They said I'd handled it well, and mentioned a guy with a similar story had done the same thing at another store in our county. In that case, the woman working locked herself in the bathroom first, and he got away. I never found out what happened to him, whether he was caught or caught someone else. I called someone to cover for me that day and went home early. For the next few days, I asked not to open, and 2 weeks later, I quit entirely. I still have nightmares about it. I don't know why he left so suddenly or why his friends didn't come in too. I don't know what they would have done to me, but I can only imagine it would have been horrific. I'm thankful I walked away with my life and that I thought fast. I live in a pretty rural but well-to-do suburb. My home is a 5-bedroom house on an almost 2-hectare property. It's a long, narrow house that wraps into an L shape at the end of a steep driveway. At the top of the driveway, you can pull up right next to the pool. There's a gate that sort of splits the yard in half, for the kids and the dog. But once you pass through, you can enter the house from the back deck. At the time, I just had my second child, a daughter who was only 6 weeks old, and my son was almost 2. My husband's a truck driver and often works country runs. One afternoon, he was leaving for another job. Usually he's all business. Packs up, kisses me and the kids, gives me a chicken. It's this cute couple thing where we hold out our palm, the other pecks it, and we say, "Chicken." Lame, I know, but it's ours. And he's off. But this time, he seemed to be moving deliberately slow, almost stalling. I asked if everything was okay, and he hesitated before nodding. He stepped out to the back deck, patted our dog Alfie, and told him to stay. I was a bit thrown. Alfie goes on every country run with him. Even the dog looked confused. I called out, "What's wrong, babe? You seem anxious." I was holding my daughter, and she started fussing. He took her from my arms, soothed her, gave her an extra big kiss and cuddle, then stared at me as he handed her back. Breaking the weird tension, he said softly, "I just don't feel right. My gut's telling me to stay." I figured he was just feeling soft, wanted to stay home with the new baby. I reassured him, "We'll be fine. You'll be back soon." This run was a 6-day round trip. Short for him. He nodded, gave us a final kiss, a chicken and a cuddle, and off he went. Fast forward to later that night. I got a text from him. Normally, his arrival texts are, "Here safe. Staying in town. Love you." But this one was out of nowhere. "Hey, baby, I've turned around. I feel really uneasy. Please lock all the doors and windows. I'll be home in a few hours." I was annoyed. He's our sole breadwinner, and this was a $5,000 job, ditched over a bad feeling. But he'd already turned back, so what could I do? I replied, "Okay, hun, see you soon." He texted back, "Love you. Oh, and keep an eye on Alfie. He's acting funny since I left." That was true. The dog hadn't moved from his bed since my husband drove off. Poor thing looked depressed. It was about 8 p.m. My son was in bed, and I just finished feeding my baby girl. I was sitting in the kitchen when Alfie suddenly leapt up from his bed and started growling. He's a shepherd mix. They'll bark at their own shadow, but growling's different. I figured it was just a cat or something outside. I opened the sliding door and hissed at him to stop. I wasn't about to put these kids back to sleep again. He looked at me, calmed down, and sat but kept watching. I shut the door, put my baby in her crib, and hopped on the computer for 30 minutes of me time. Just as I was checking emails, there was a knock at the door. Now, like I said, it's a long, narrow house, so it's a trek to the front. I got to answer, but froze. 1, it was 8:15 who's knocking. 2, I didn't hear a truck, and everyone knows the rumble of a B-double pulling up. 3, my husband has keys, and we mostly use the back door anyway. My heart started racing. They knocked again. Alfie went nuts. I wanted to yell at him to stop, but didn't want to wake the kids. I walked a little farther down the hall, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was my husband. Maybe something happened to the truck, and he got a ride home or walked. I reached the door and peeked through the curtain. It definitely wasn't him. This guy was taller and thinner. I flicked on the outside light, but it didn't work. The bulb must have blown. I was right by the door when a desperate voice came from the other side. "Hello? I'm sorry to come so late. I'm really sorry, but I'm hurt." I felt bad and went to turn the knob when he spoke again. "I'm really sorry. I had a car accident, and your house was the closest. Please, I'm bleeding a lot." We're in a rural area with a winding road, so I felt awful for him and decided to open the door. The chain was still on. I looked through the gap and saw him faintly in the moonlight. I whispered, "You hurt?" His shadow nodded. His voice shifted, calmer than before. "Yeah, I wrecked my car on the bend. Could I please use your phone? I can't find mine." I reached for the chain to unhook it, but in my peripheral vision, I saw another shadow behind him. My hand froze. My gut screamed no. I said in a shaky voice, "I'll call an ambulance for you," and slammed the door, deadbolting it. He started yelling, "No, let me in. Let me in, you bitch. I need help. Just let me in, you stupid asshole." I ran down the hall toward my phone in the kitchen, but stopped outside my son's room to listen. He wasn't screaming anymore, but something worse. Alfie wasn't barking either. I darted into my son's room. He was still asleep. Scooped him up, ran to my bedroom, grabbed my baby, put her in her carrier, and hid them in the walk-in closet. They were both sound asleep, and I damn well wasn't letting anything happen to them. I locked them in, then crawled toward my phone. I paused in the living room to listen. I heard 2 voices and at least 3 sets of feet running around the property, trying to get in. I crouched down, looking for my phone, and spotted it on the kitchen bench. I peeked around the corner to check the deck through the sliding doors. I worried if they saw me grab it, they'd escalate. In the corner of my eye, I saw the man's shadow. I turned, and his needle-thin face was pressed against the glass, lit by moonlight. I dove back into the living room as they started banging on the windows, walls, screaming, trying to scare me. And I was terrified. Phone in hand, I weighed my options. The nearest police station was 40 minutes away. Even if they had someone local, it'd take time. Then I remembered my husband was on his way back. Shaking, I called him. They were still hammering the house, looking for a weak spot. He picked up on the 6th ring. "Yellow, babe. How far away are you?" I couldn't hide the panic. I heard the truck speed up. 15, but I'll make it in 10. "What happened?" "There's people here. They're trying to get in." "I haven't called the police." He cut me off. "Call them." Then he said something that sank my stomach. "Get an ambulance to... These bastards will die tonight." I couldn't respond. He called me back. "Babe, get the negotiator and sit tight, but call the cops, okay?" I cried through the phone. The negotiator was a steel bat in the walk-in closet. I called the police, told them we were under attack, alone with 2 small kids. The dispatcher said they were sending someone and to bunker down. I went to the closet, checked my kids. Still asleep? Thank God. Grabbed the negotiator and sat in front of them, bat on my lap. My mind raced. Were the windows locked? The doors? What did they do to Alfie? And why us? We're in a nice area, but not the fanciest. We're comfortable, not rich. If they wanted money or stuff, wouldn't they have given up by now? It had been 5 minutes. Surely they knew I called someone. I sat there as it got quiet. The bedroom blinds were down, but I saw shadows outside. Then I heard thuds on the roof, like someone jumping. It's corrugated, so even leaves make noise. They were on the roof. Then a crack from the ceiling hit me, like a shock wave. They were trying to break through the skylight in the hallway. Another crack. They were working together. 3 sets of feet now. 3 hits on the skylight. If they got through, they'd be less than a meter from my room. The banging intensified, and I heard debris hit the floor. I had to move. I jumped up, looked at my kids. We had to get out. I grabbed a scarf from the closet, tied it tight around my shoulder as a sling, put my baby in it, picked up my 2-year-old. He started stirring and whispered, "Be quiet." I opened the bedroom door, peeked into the hall. The banging was deafening. Debris everywhere. I grabbed my son's hand, bolted to the sliding door, yanked it open, and ran. Holding him tight, I leapt off the 3 steps and sprinted up the driveway. He was screaming, "Alfie!" I tried to shush him, focus on reaching the road. I hoped the darkness and noise hit us. At the top, I spun around. I was wrong. They'd noticed. 3 figures climbed down from the roof. The nearest house was 2 kilometers away. Running with 2 kids, my odds up, but I had to try. I turned left, ran along the road, hoping to flag a car, praying my husband or the cops would show. Out of breath, I slowed to check behind me. Nothing. They weren't following. Maybe they just wanted to rob us. Going in through the open sliding door, the adrenaline faded. My son clung to me, crying. My baby wailed, probably from the jostling. I held them close, whispering. We made it. About 100 meters from my neighbor's place, I saw a cop car. I waved frantically, screaming for it to stop. The officer slammed the brakes, got out. Officer, I called it in. I just fled with my kids. It's my house. He asked, are you hurt? I shook my head, catching my breath. He said, can you get somewhere safe? Heading to the neighbors, just there. I pointed. Okay, move quick, he said, jumping back in and speeding off. I reached my neighbors, an older couple, like grandparents to my kids. I explained everything, and they got me inside. Just then, my husband's truck roared past toward the house. His words echoed, these bastards will die tonight. I froze. I didn't want him in prison over these monsters. I asked my neighbors to watch the kids. I had to get back. They agreed. The husband said, jump in my car, I'll run you up. We pulled up to my house minutes later. 3 cop cars, an ambulance, my husband's truck. Chaos. 2 of the 3 creeps were face down in the dirt, arrested. My husband leaned on a cop car, face in his hands. I ran to him. He spun around, hugged me tight. Oh, baby, I thought, he stammered. The cops wouldn't let him inside, and he'd assumed the worst. The kids are at Patterson's, I said. He let go. I knew I shouldn't have left. I knew it. A cop interrupted for my statement. I told him everything, watching my husband's face twist in horror. When I finished, the officer said, sorry, but I think it's best you leave the premises for now. I told him we'd be at the neighbors and to find us when they were done. We got back to the neighbors around 10:30 p.m., talking over every insane detail. I checked the kids, asleep on the couch. My baby stirred, hungry. I fed her, sat by my son, patted his leg, wondering how much he'd remember. Then I noticed blood on his pajama bottoms. I checked his feet, no cuts. I smiled. It's okay, buddy. I just thought you hurt yourself. He pointed at his feet and said, Alfie, it hit me. The blood was Alfie's. My heart broke. I shushed him back to sleep, went to the patio where my husband was, and asked, did you see Alfie? He burst into tears. I hadn't even thought about Alfie until then. Awful, I know. But I was so focused on the kids. I went to hold him. He brushed me off, exhaled. They killed him. It's the first thing I saw when I ran to the house. He cried harder. I thought if they could do that to a dog, what could they have done to you? I looked at him, confused. Babe, they split his head in 2, he said. I started bawling. How sick. Poor Alfie. A cop car pulled into the driveway. I dried my face. It was the same officer from the road. He said they'd caught all 3 invaders and transferred them to station. Relief hit me. He gave us the rundown. After I fled, they trashed everything. Pictures, walls, clothes, room to room, hell-bent on destruction. They didn't take anything, just chaos for kicks. Their van, parked 300 meters up the road, had meat tenderizers, knives, shovels, ropes, tubes, ice picks. On them, crowbars, hammers, a Bowie knife, a Sharpie, a coat hanger, a barbecue lighter. I asked why us. He couldn't say. The main guy, the one at the door, wouldn't talk. The cop looked sick, saying it was unlike anything he'd seen. They likely saw I was alone and vulnerable. My husband added, living out here, they'd know the cops were far off. I wondered if they were local. How else would they know response times? Random attack or watched by someone nearby. Both were chilling. We couldn't return. It was a crime scene. But the next morning, my husband convinced the cop we needed diapers and clothes. He came back a mess. Angry, crying, he jumped out his truck, grabbed my shoulders, pulled me close. They knew us, he spat. What do you mean? I asked. He explained. Beyond trashing the place, they'd sharpened stuff about us, specific stuff. On the kitchen bench, baby feeds every 3 hours. Living room wall, the boy likes Transformers. Home office, 6-day run, 6-day run. Our bedroom was madness. Chicken scrawled over and over on the back wall. The closet door had an arrow and the negotiator, the bat leaning against it. The kids' rooms were untouched, but the hall had dates and times. A teen playgroup at 11 a.m. to 15 p.m. talked on phone. At the front door, in neat writing, lucky she could run fast. He grabbed what he could and bolted. I felt sick. They'd been watching us for a while, knew everything. We stayed with my sister while my husband fixed the house. When we returned, I hated it. It took forever to feel normal alone again. The three were 19, 18, and 21, with record for stalking, rape of a minor, breaking and entering, harassment, grievous bodily harm, crimes in nearby towns. They'd gotten counseling or short stints before. For this, they got 7 to 12 years. The needle thing guy laughed at his sentence. Real psychopath vibes. I sit in my house now, and that terror creeps back. How close me and my kids came to being their twisted fun. I shake it off. We painted the walls, fixed the damage. It looks new, but I can't use the front door. Even with 4 coats of paint, I still see lucky she could run fast. I live in a decently big city in Indiana. I'm 20 now, but the events I'm about to tell you happened back in 2008 when I was around 12 or 13 years old. At that time, I was the only girl in our little group of friends. There were 4 of us, me and my 3 buddies, Terry, Dave, and Ben. We all lived pretty close to each other. Terry's house was 1 street away from mine, kind of in the middle of where we all were. So whenever we hung out, it was usually his place or mine, since mine was the second closest for everyone. A little backstory about Terry's house. Before his family moved in, it belonged to an uncle of this girl we sort of knew, an acquaintance more than a friend. Her uncle had a serious heart condition. He wasn't super close with her or her family, so it wasn't unusual for him to go a week or 2 without contact. One day, he had a heart attack in the kitchen, fell, hit his head on the corner of a countertop, and bled out. It took 3 weeks for someone in her family to check on him, and that's when they found his body. A few years later, the house went up for rent, and Terry's family moved in. They didn't know about its history until after they'd settled in. We were a bit different from the other kids back then. We were all black, listened to heavy metal, and mostly kept to ourselves during middle school. The other kids were busy trying to be popular, fit in, and find their place, so they usually steered clear of us. That year, though, a bunch of weird stuff happened. I went to one middle school, Dave and Ben went to another, and Terry went to third, even though we all lived in the same school district. This will make sense later, so just bear with me on the backstory. Terry's birthday is in October, so every year we'd throw him a Halloween/scary theme party. That year, we decided to mess around with a Ouija board, partly because of the creepy history of his house with that girl's uncle. For about an hour, we were just goofing off, trying to spook each other, but then we got serious. We asked the board if anyone was there, and it spelled out basement. Being dumb preteens, we figured, hey, let's go check out the basement. So we did. It was one of those creepy basements with a dirt floor and water-damaged walls from years of neglect. Super eerie to be down there alone. We poked around and ended up in the back room where the circuit breaker was. Dave noticed a loose brick in the wall, pulled it out, and found an old photo of a man wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat, kind of like what Amish guys wear. I'm not sure what it's called, so sorry if I got that wrong. He showed it to us, and we all freaked out a little. We decided to borrow Terry's mom's cell phone and leave it down there to record. hoping to catch some voices or something. We went back upstairs, ate some pizza, and waited. When we returned to grab the phone, the recording didn't have anything special, at least not until Terry's older brother decided to scare us by screaming right behind us while we were listening. After that, we figured we'd try the garage instead. Terry's garage door, the big one for the car, didn't work right. It only opened enough for someone to crawl under, and it made this awful grinding noise if you even tried. To be safe, we locked the door we came through and made sure the garage door was fully shut, so his brother couldn't pull another prank. We grabbed some nails from his dad's workbench and placed two of them side by side in each corner of the garage to see if anything would move them. Then we all stood in the middle of the room, turned off the lights for extra atmosphere, though some light still came in from the house through the door, so it wasn't pitch black, and started asking questions. After about half an hour, we turned the lights back on. Every pair of nails had shifted into an X shape. We were totally freaked out. We listened to the recording from the phone, and near the very end we heard this deep, gruff man's voice say, "I want him now." It made us all so uneasy that we decided to get out of there. As we headed for the door, Dave suddenly asked, "Where's Terry?" We looked around. He was gone. The garage door was still shut, and even if it wasn't, we'd have heard that horrible noise if he tried to open it. The wooden door to the backyard was still locked from the inside. We bolted back into the house, told his mom everything, and played the recording for her. You could hear Terry's voice asking questions the whole time, until that man's voice cut in. When she heard it, his mom started freaking out. We searched the house top to bottom, closets, under beds, behind couches, in the tub, every room, even the basement. After an hour, she called 911. While she was on the phone with the dispatcher, Terry came stumbling down the stairs, holding his head and looking confused. "How did I get upstairs?" he asked. His mom told the dispatcher we'd found him, hung up, hugged him tight, then yelled at him for hiding and scaring us half to death. He just stared at her, baffled, and said the last thing he remembered was being in the garage with us. Somehow, he'd woken up under his parents' bed, a spot we'd checked at least 4 or 5 times. After a police officer came, took a report, and left, we decided to call it a night. We put on a movie and crashed in the living room. The next morning, we said our goodbyes and went home. Not long after, all 4 of us started noticing weird things in our own houses. Stuff disappearing, TVs turning on in empty rooms, footsteps when no one else was home or everyone was asleep, that kind of thing. My house got it the worst, and it even started affecting my parents and our dogs. One day, I got home from school. My dad was working second shift back then, so he left for work an hour before I got out. My mom picked me up every day, meaning the dogs were the only ones home. When we walked in, all the food from the fridge was laid out on the kitchen table. We called my dad, thinking someone had broken in. He rushed home in 20 minutes, searched the house, but found no one. He went back to work, and my mom and I spent the next hour putting everything away, trying to figure out how it happened. The next day, it was the freezer stuff, all of it spread out on the table. Fast forward to Christmas Eve. My dad and I were watching TV while my mom was in her room, wrapping presents. Out of nowhere, we saw a bright flash near the top of the tree, followed by a loud crash. I checked it out. The porcelain angel we had as the tree topper had cracked and shattered all over the floor. My dad lost it and asked if I thought our house was haunted like he did. I said yeah, and told him about Terry's party. He figured that since we'd all messed with the Ouija board, whatever we'd contacted was now following us. A year later, Terry's family moved away because of all the weird stuff at their place. Ironically, right next to the cemetery, we could only see him on weekends when his mom dropped him off or picked us up. In 2009, I lost a whole week of my life. No memory of it at all. A friend from my school, Annabelle, who was also Terry's girlfriend at the time, said I had dark rings under my eyes and they were always bloodshot in class. She said I'd take my pencil and carve into the backs of my hands until they bled. I still have the scars, but I can't remember doing it. We stopped being friends for months because she got so scared of me. The day I came back to myself, I was riding home in the car, listening to the radio when they said the date. That's when I realized I had lost a week. That same day, I noticed a busted blood vessel in the white of my right eye, shaped kind of like a star. I spiraled into a deep depression, thinking I was losing my mind. I cut off Annabelle, Dave, Terry, and Ben, and isolated myself from my family for months. One day, Terry decided to check on me. He hopped on his bike and headed to my house. He was on the sidewalk outside the cemetery when a guy in a gold Cadillac swerved onto the curb and hit him. The driver jumped out and ran off. Someone called 911. Terry died 3 times on the way to the hospital before the EMTs stabilized him. I found out the next day when Annabelle called me and I was wrecked. I blamed myself since he'd been coming to see me. My parents, Dave, Ben, and I went to the hospital and spent the day with him. We talked about everything since his party and decided that once he was out, we'd buy sage and smudge all our houses together. After a month of rehab, he got released and we went through with it. Cleanse every room in all our places. Weird stuff still happens sometimes, but it's nowhere near as intense or dangerous as before. Now I live in the house next to the cemetery, the one Terry used to live in. It's quieter and calmer here, though every now and then I hear faint noises in the basement or voices in my room. I've lost touch with Ben, Annabelle, and Terry over unrelated stuff, and I rarely talk to Dave. He and I seem to be the only one still dealing with fallout from 7 years ago. I'm sharing this to warn people. Ouija boards and messing with spirits is no joke. It nearly killed my friend, and almost took me down too. Be careful if you decide to mess with that stuff. This was, hands down, the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. I worked with Sheila for about 3 years when this all went down. She was a 53-year-old widow, a mom of 2 grown kids who lived out of state with families of their own. Around that time, Sheila got herself a home computer. After hearing folks talk about it, she decided to jump back into the dating game by signing up for a few online dating sites. A bit more about Sheila. She was decent looking, not stunning, not plain, just average, I'd say. But since her husband passed, she'd been feeling fat, unworthy of love, and ugly. It sounded silly to me, but who am I to judge? Within days of joining those sites, Sheila started getting messages, mostly from guys like her. Hard-working, average looks, middle-class lives. But for whatever reason, none of them were what she wanted. She and I were pretty tight. So one night she emailed me a link to the profile of her latest online suitor. The second I saw it, I thought, whoa, way out of her league. This guy claimed he was 21 years younger than her. Strapping, good-looking, muscular, and loaded. Supposedly, he graduated from Oxford, owned an architecture firm, and traveled the world. I didn't want to crush her spirits or rain on her parade, so I just replied, heck yeah, he looks great. Wish a guy like that was into me. The next morning at work, we giggled and chatted about this new man in her life. I still had a bad feeling, but I kept it to myself. She was too excited. She printed out some of their emails, and for some reason, I held on to them. Here's a sample of one exchange. Hi, pretty woman. I like to see your smiley face. It will make me happy the day I can see in the flesh. You're so pretty, like a flower growing in my yard. You're so sweet. Thanks. I appreciate your compliments. No complimenting. Just the truth from my lips. Where do you stay? Do you have work to go to? What things occupy you? You have little ones running around at your feet. Thanks again, you have such a nice face. You're very handsome. I do not have little ones running at my feet. And by the way, it sounds funny when you say it like that, but yes, I have children. They're growing up with their own families and live in Maryland and Oregon. I don't get to see them much. I have some health problems, so I don't travel very often. I would like to, though. Anyway, I do work. I work for a group of healthcare providers as a manager. As for what occupies my time, I see movies, mostly on Netflix. Going to movies alone is, well, lonely. I like to read romance books, watch TV, play games on computer, and go shopping or out to eat with my girlfriends. What about you? I work so much I don't have any time for fun stuff. I still can't believe I'm so lucky that women with beauty, like you, would talk to me. I don't mean to pry, but your way of writing is kind of unique. Where were you raised? Your profile says you live in New York. That's a bit far from me as far as dating someone is concerned, but I do like having a friend to come home and talk to. I was raised in France, moved to the US of A when I went to university. I do live in New York, but you're not too far for me to travel to see my flower. I can come to you. Do you like shopping? I'll take you to your favorite store and buy you what you desire. As for you, you're so handsome. I don't know why you want someone like me. And you don't have to buy me anything. Please, just be my friend. As I stated, I do get lonely. Please write to me your phone number. Sheila gave him her number. I won't put it here. Thanks, my sweet love. I'll call you tomorrow. What time can I call you, my love? Anytime after 6 p.m., talk to you then. Looking forward to it. Me too, sweet love. That was one of their early chats. Sheila was over the moon after their first phone call. The next day at work, she gushed about how he was in Amsterdam working on a university theater project he designed. She went on about how he drove a Corvette and how fun it'd be to ride along the beach in a fast car, something her practical husband would have never done. She had this glow I'd never seen before. She admitted that, despite loving her husband, she'd always wished he'd been more spontaneous, more fun. When he died, he left her a chunk of money. I don't know the exact amount, but I'd guess over $200,000. Sheila had always been practical, though, and kept working. Not because she had to, but because she didn't like being alone. She once told me she just came to work to hang out with me. I loved Sheila. We were as close as two people with such an age gap could be. Her laugh was the best. It could light up anyone's day, and she was so animated when she talked. It made every conversation great. Soon after they started talking, he sent her flowers, perfume, chocolates, letters, all the romantic stuff most women dream of. I still wasn't sold, and I was honestly appalled she'd give him her address. She insisted she could trust him. Sheila was head over heels, coming to work every day walking on air. I'd never seen her so happy. Hell, I was newly married and wasn't even that happy. But no matter how thrilled she was, I couldn't shake my doubts. This was a few years before catfishing was a big thing people talked about, so while I was suspicious, I wasn't sure. I told her to take it slow, not to commit until she'd met him in person. He was supposed to come to town the next week, so she could decide then. Sheila booked him a hotel room. He said it wouldn't be proper to stay at her place, since they were just meeting, wanting to be a gentleman. She and I went shopping for a new outfit, and she got her hair done, the whole 9 yards. I offered to go with her to pick him up at the airport, but she said no. The big day came. It was a Friday, so she took that day and Monday off to spend with him. I told her to call me as soon as she got back from the airport. She was supposed to pick him up at 4 p.m., so I figured she'd call by 6 o'clock. When I hadn't heard from her by 6:30, I called, straight to voicemail. I tried again, then again I was starting to panic. I was about to drive the airport route when she finally called around 9 p.m., sobbing but safe at home. I told my husband I had to go to her and headed over. She was a mess when I got there, red-faced, still crying. She said the guy was stuck in Amsterdam, held up by immigration. He'd tried to talk his way onto the plane, but they confiscated his carry-on with all his money and ID, and wouldn't let him board. His business associates had put him up and paid off the officials, but now he was stranded with nothing. It sounded fishy to me. I didn't know much about immigration or Amsterdam, but something felt off. Still, I was relieved, thinking this might get him out of her life. But the look on her face said otherwise. A few days later, he told her his associates had bailed him out, but they were holding his money until he paid them back what he owed. Sheila suggested they just deduct it. He said they did things differently there and he had to pay first. He'd mentioned before that his brother was a missionary. Now, he said the brother was on a trip in Ghana and would come get him. He asked if she could send money to the brother, promising to repay her when he got back to the U.S. She sent $33,700 to Ghana. My stomach sank. I knew she was being played, but I didn't know how to convince her. Night after night, he sweet-talked her. Here's another message he sent. Hello, my beautiful bride. I send sweet kisses across the ocean to land on your beautiful cheeks and lovely lips. To hold you in my arms is what I wake thinking of, and the tender words you speak are the song I fall asleep to. I am so excited for the day I can call you bride. I wait for the day we are a family. Since the losing of my first wife and son, all I have wanted to be is a family with someone. You are that person, my real family. Good night, my love, your protector, lover, husband. And the sappy stuff just kept going. About a month after the immigration mess, he got very ill and had to cancel another trip to see her. She was crushed again. He told her they didn't take health insurance where he was, and he had to pay cash. He still had no credit card since the airport fiasco, and now he couldn't afford the doctors. She asked tons of questions, and he always had answers that sounded good to her. Total bullshit to me, but she wouldn't listen. He said he needed his gold blood out, whatever that meant, and his brother was coming to help, but he needed $7,000 for surgery or he might die. Working in healthcare, you'd think she'd see through it, but nope. She sent the money to his brother. For a week, she heard nothing. Supposedly he was recovering. I rolled my eyes when she told me, gave her a pat on the back, and said, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to say. She started pulling away from me after that. Our friendship barely existed outside work, but I stuck around, knowing she'd need me when this guy's mask finally slipped. Stuff like the hospital scam kept happening. Different excuses every time. One night, he called saying money he'd sent her via Western Union was missing, and it'd take 30 days to sort out. He claimed it was all he had left, no cash for food or his hotel. He begged her to send it back. She'd never gotten any money from him, though when she finally pushed back, saying she didn't have more to give, he flipped out and hung up. 20 minutes later, she got this email. She forwarded it to me because it shook her up. Sheila, I thought you loved me. No love for me. You want me to starve in the street? You want me to die? Fine, bitch. I will die of hunger in the street. No room to stay in. I will die, but I will make sure I hurt you and your family before I die. I know people will come to you. They will kill because I say to. You will die, bitch. Hate me will I hate you. You'll soon see. Die, bitch. Her reply was, please don't say those things to me, my love. You are the heart inside of me. I love you more than anyone. Please do not call me names. It hurts me and makes me think that you may be mean when we're married. Please, my love, forgive me. I love you so much. I'll send you the $2,000 plus an extra $200 in case of any other things that might happen. Please be my love. I will send the money tomorrow morning when the bank opens. And she did. I was starting to resent her, if I'm honest. It might sound selfish, but my husband and I were struggling financially, and she'd never offered to help. It stung to watch her throw thousands at some stranger while we scraped by. I was pissed at how naive she'd gotten. Pissed that her husband's death money was going to this creep. Pissed at everything. Most of all, I was pissed that this woman I loved and respected had turned into a mindless fool. One day at lunch, she leaned in like she had a secret. I'm putting in my notice. What notice? I asked. 2 weeks. Here at this dump office. I'm quitting. I was actually happy, thinking she'd snapped out of it. Really? That's great. I'll miss you, but I'm glad you're getting out to enjoy life. Yeah, I'm going on a mission trip with Kensington and his brother. We're all going to Ghana. My heart sank, then raced. Ghana? You've never met him. Sheila, I don't know if this is a good idea. Have you talked to your kids? Are you sure you're up for this trip? This doesn't sound great. Hell no, I haven't told my kids. They'd try to stop me. I want to live and learn to love again. As for traveling, he's going to help me. Sheila, I'm not sure this is love. Has he ever paid you back the money he owes you? No, but husbands don't pay back their wives, silly. You'll see. She tossed her food in the trash and stormed off. A few weeks later, I was at her house helping her pack, still trying to talk her out of it. She went anyway. She left me her house key, showed me where her important papers were, and added me as an authorized user on her bank account in case of emergencies. Like an idiot, I drove her to the airport. She called when she got there and sent pics of her with this guy. Not some 30-something Brad Pitt, but a 22-year-old Ghanaian who worked in an internet cafe. She was smiling, but it wasn't the giddy smile she left with. It looked forced. Before she left, we'd set up a danger phrase. If she used it, it meant she was in trouble. I tried researching this mission group she was joining, but found nothing online. She said they were small and didn't waste money on websites, just sponsored by a famous evangelist. I called the evangelist headquarters. They'd never heard of the group. I was terrified now, but when I talked to her a few days earlier, she hadn't used the phrase, though she seemed off. She'd been gone about 6 weeks when she called. My blood ran cold when she said, "Jason is doing great. Just talk to him." Our danger phrase. She hung up minutes later. I had no clue where she was. Her IP kept changing, and she called from different numbers. It wasn't my business, but I went to the bank and got a printout of that month's transactions. She'd taken out $12,000. Soon after, she called and asked me to withdraw $3,200 and send it to some random person. When I asked why I couldn't send it to her, she brushed me off and demanded I do it. I was too scared not to. She was in trouble. After I sent it, I called the police, but they passed me around to 1,000 people with no help. I tried the embassy. Same deal. No one could track her down. This was before internet scams were a big focus, so the feds didn't seem to grasp what was happening. I hadn't heard from her in over a week after that. She'd been gone 5 years now. The last call was 4 years ago. By then, she'd drained her account down to $72, and the bank closed it for inactivity. I got a few emails supposedly from Kensington or his crew, but they didn't sound like her. I know she didn't write them. 5 years later, we still pray we'll see Sheila's beautiful face again. I fear she's gone, though I like to think she fell so in love she didn't want us to interfere. But I know that's not true. I'm pretty sure Sheila's dead, and we'll never get to say goodbye properly. I'm telling this to warn people. I know younger folks might be more aware, but these scams pull you in a million ways. Loneliness, desperation, grief, they prey on it all. No matter how savvy you think you are, these people make manipulation their full-time gig. They'll find your weak spots and exploit them. This isn't just some catfish creep looking for young girls. It's about people of all ages. Men get hit by women doing this too. Since trying to find Sheila, I've met tons of folks with similar stories who got out before meeting these jerks. Please, be careful who you trust. I don't want to hear about any more Sheilas. So, this happened back in August of 2015. First, a little backstory. My family and I were heading to Idaho for my birthday and to attend a wedding. I'm originally from Idaho, and when my best friend Chris heard I'd be in town, he suggested we do something while I was there. He'd recently come across this crater, a spot not many people seem to know about, and thought it'd be cool to check out. We planned to go with my friend Ryan and my cousin Stan, build a fire, cook some hot dogs, drink soda, and just hang out like teenagers do. Now, on to the story itself. After the wedding, Chris picked me up last since I had to stick around for the ceremony. We all piled into his car and headed to Ryan's place to grab his car. Chris's trunk was already stuffed, and we needed space for the firewood. Once we got Ryan's car loaded up with the wood, we set off for the crater. It was off the main roads, down a rough, bumpy dirt path. We arrived around 7 p.m., and I'd never been there before, so I was pretty surprised when I saw it. The place was huge, a ball-shaped crater big enough to fit several dozen cars, maybe more. Bushes lined the sides and rimmed the outside, giving it a kind of wild, hidden vibe. We got to work starting the fire. It took a while, but we finally got it going. I was recording our attempt on my phone when Ryan suddenly said, "There's someone here." I stopped filming and looked up. Sure enough, there was a car reversing slowly until it stopped about 5 feet from the crater's edge. I'm not great with cars, so I can't say exactly what it was, but it looked something like a 2011 GMC Yukon Denali. We watched it for a minute, but nothing happened. No one got out, no movement, nothing. So we just went back to setting up. We were getting everything ready when we realized we'd forgotten chairs. Ryan decided to drive to Stan's house with Stan to grab some. Plus, Stan wanted his contact lens case, since he was crashing at Chris's place later. It wasn't dark yet, probably around 7:30. Ryan and Stan hopped in Ryan's car and drove past the parked car above us. They went by it slowly, then kept going. That left just me and Chris, tending the fire and trying to keep it from dying out. I couldn't stop glancing at the car. It was making me uneasy. I noticed 2 people inside, one in the passenger seat, one in the driver's seat. They looked down at us for a second, then turned away. I kept thinking, maybe they're waiting for us to leave. It started getting darker, but the car was still there. Then I heard its engine start. I looked up, but it wasn't moving. The sound just stopped. I mentioned it to Chris, and he didn't know what to make of it either. More time passed. I called Stan to check in, and he said they were loading the chairs into the car as we spoke. After I hung up, Chris and I noticed a light coming from the car. I could have sworn it was a flashlight beaming down at us, but Chris thought it might have been a lighter. We kept waiting as it got darker, and the car started blending into the night. Then I heard the engine again, looked up, and still nothing. I called Stan again, asking where they were. He said they'd stopped to pick up sandwiches. I told him the car was still there, and that I was sure they were watching us. Stan asked, "What do you mean?" He explained that when he and Ryan had driven by earlier, they'd pulled up slowly to the car and looked inside, and there was nobody in it. I glanced up at the car again and saw something weird. Movement in the passenger side window, like an arm bending in a strange, unnatural way. "Dude, they're in there. I just saw them," I said to Chris. Stan promised they'd be back soon. It was nearing 9 o'clock now. They'd been gone over an hour. We couldn't see the car anymore. It was too dark. As we sat by the fire, I kept staring toward where it had been. The wind rustled the bushes, sounding like someone creeping around, trying not to be heard. After a few minutes of that, I called Stan again. They were at a gas station just down the road. I was on edge. There was nothing we could do but wait and see if someone stepped out of the shadows. I looked at Chris and said, "You know where your car keys are, right?" He nodded. "Yeah, they're on the driver's seat." I glanced over and saw the window was down, so we were good to bolt if we had to. Just then, we heard a car coming down the dirt road. Ryan and Stan were back. As they drove past a mystery car, it suddenly roared to life and sped off down the dirt road. We told them everything, how creepy it had been, the noises, the light, the movement. They swore there'd been no one in the car when they'd checked earlier. We stayed another hour, telling stories and talking, but we were all on guard the whole time. Eventually, we packed up and left. There's still stuff that doesn't add up. Why did we see them looking at us multiple times? Why'd they show up just after we did? What was that weird movement I saw? Why'd they peel out like that? Why didn't Ryan and Stan see anyone when they looked? I'll never know, and honestly, I'm not sure I want to. A few months later, I got a call from Chris. He'd gone back to the crater the day before with some other friends. I wasn't there since I'd gone back home. He said they'd gone for the same reason we had. Fire, food, hanging out. While they were there, they kept hearing noises, like a car engine trying to start in the distance, but it was too dark to see anything. It happened so often they timed it. every minute and 2 seconds, like clockwork. I remember hearing that engine sound when I was there too, a few separate times. After a while, it stopped. Then, as they were putting out the fire, they heard a blood-curdling scream, a woman's voice, coming from somewhere in the dark. They booked it out of there and drove off fast. Chris told his older brother about it later, and his brother said he'd had his own weird experience there with friends. They'd heard what sounded like people running around in the darkness, but they never saw a thing. That place still gives me chills just thinking about it. This happened in 2013. I was 15, just wrapping up my early high school years. That spring, my parents decided we needed to move because we couldn't keep up with the rent at our old place. By late April, we'd settled into a pretty big 2-story house out in the countryside, about an hour from the nearest town. Fields stretched out all around us, and our only neighbor was this grumpy farmer and his even grumpier mastiff, who hated everyone, living about 50 acres away. It wasn't ideal, but we took it and moved in the next day. The house always had this creepy vibe. Everyone who walked in could feel it. For me, it was worse upstairs. I'd get chills every time I went up there. I figured it was just the layout or the fact that there was only one dim light in the hallway. At night, once I was in bed, I stayed put. I wouldn't even get up to use the bathroom. Just lay there, frozen, with this nagging feeling that someone was coming or staring at me hard. I tried to brush it off and live with it, but it never really went away. The experience that finally made my parents move us out happened on a weekend in July. It was raining, and my parents had taken my 3 younger brothers to my grandparents' place. I'm kind of an introvert, so I opted to stay home and play video games. They left, usually back by 6 p.m., leaving me alone in the house. About 4 hours in, around 3 p.m., those familiar chills hit me again. Then I started hearing weird banging noises from upstairs. I told myself it was just the wind and rain messing with the house. I had my 3 dogs with me. They follow me everywhere, so I brought them into the game room, right at the base of the stairs. I figured no one could sneak up on me with them around. But as I kept pacing between the kitchen and the game room, I had to pass the stairs each time. Every trip, I got this nervous knot in my stomach, like someone was watching me, ready to pounce. I tried to ignore it, but the bangs kept coming, louder now, like something slamming against a wall or a door. My dogs noticed it too, which freaked me out more. They can sleep through a thunderstorm, so this wasn't normal. My biggest dog, Moy, started barking and howling, and that just cranked my fear up higher. I decided to tough it out, and made one more trip to the kitchen for a drink. This time, the dogs didn't follow. They stayed huddled at the back of the room, away from the door. I grabbed my drink fast, but then it hit me, a wave of pure terror and panic. I couldn't breathe. My mind locked on to getting back to the game room, and locking the door. Instinct took over. I froze, then slowly turned my head up the stairs. There at the top was a man, a huge guy, staring down at me with wild, wide eyes. He let out this deep, rumbling growl that I can still hear clear as day. It made my whole body shake. I stared back, petrified, inching backward. Then he started stomping down the stairs, yelling, "Piss off, you little shit! Die, you bastard!" I bolted into the game room, slammed the door, and locked it. I shoved the couch in front of it, locked the windows, and collapsed on the floor with my dogs and my brother's air rifle. I grabbed my phone and called my dad. When he picked up, I screamed, "Dad, there's someone in the house." He came at me. "I'm so scared. Please come home." I was sobbing into phone when I heard a voice outside, deep and creepy as hell. "Oh, all right. Sorry to scare you." I screamed again and looked up. There he was, the same guy, grinning at me through the window. My dogs went nuts, barking and growling. I fired the air rifle 5 times, popping little holes in the glass with the pellets, but he was already gone. I saw him sprint across the road and disappear into the field. That was the last I ever saw of him. My parents got home about 20 minutes later, yelling my name. They found me on the floor, crying my eyes out. My dad asked why the front door was wide open, why all the taps were running. He said he'd heard me on the phone, but thought I couldn't hear him. Turns out, that guy was a neighbor. He'd climbed in through a back window and had been trashing the place upstairs. Later, I found out he killed himself after that whole mess. That experience messed me up bad. I'm 26 now, and I still sleep with a nightlight. I can't walk past stairs alone or look out windows at night without freaking out. I still have nightmares about that guy. His wide eyes, rugged beard, dirty clothes, crooked teeth, and that thick accent. It's burned into my head. Every summer, my family would go camping for a week up near Harrison Lake in British Columbia, Canada. This happened around 1998, when I was 13 or 14. That year, we'd started camping with another family we'd gotten close to. They had 4 kids. We had 4 kids, and I was the youngest of our bunch. One day during the trip, the mom from the other family suggested we take a drive about an hour away to check out an old heritage building and a petting zoo. My family wasn't interested, but I was itching to get away from them for a bit. So I jumped at the chance. We piled into their car and hit the road. The drive felt like forever. Hot summer sun beating down. A car full of kids probably driving their mom up the wall. Their 4 kids and I were all between 11 and 14, restless and crammed together. After winding up and down the mountainside, we finally pulled up to this place called Kilby Historic Site. We spilled out of the car and took in the scene. A quiet little farmland area in the middle of nowhere. Some old buildings. A few trees off to the side. Nothing too exciting. Once we got to the gate, we headed to the petting zoo to feed the goats and hens. But after the long ride, I was too antsy to care much about the animals. I went up to the mom and asked, "Is this all there is to this place?" She pointed to a bigger building off to the side and said, "There's still that place over there. Let's go check it out." We walked up a ramp to get inside, and when we stepped in, it was like walking into an old general store from the mid-1800s. A lady behind the counter, dressed in period clothes, greeted us. She gave a little speech about how this was a vital store back in the day and how people used to live upstairs. You could tell a bunch of preteens weren't exactly thrilled about a history lesson. The lady looked bored too, probably didn't feel like talking, so she suggested we go explore upstairs. The 5 of us kids shuffled up this blue stairwell and ended up in the middle of a long hallway stretching from one end of the house to the other. There were 4 rooms, all roped off with velvet barriers, but you could still peek inside. At one end of the hall was a small alcove with a table, chairs, and bookshelves. Since we could all see each other, and the hallway was the only place to walk, we knew we were alone up there. It was dead quiet. We started checking out the rooms one by one. First was a master bedroom with a king-size bed, a purple canopy tied up, and curtains drawn. In the hallway, there was a glass case with a wedding dress and lace gloves next to it, probably worn by the lady of the house way back when. Next was a kid's room with a small bed, some papers, and crayons scattered on the floor. Nothing weird there. Then a bathroom with an old copper tub and copper pipes. Pretty standard. The last room was the most interesting. It was right by the bookshelf area, but the lights were off and the curtains weren't drawn, so it was pitch black except for a sliver of light from the hall. The door was tied shut with some twine. Guess they ran out of velvet ropes, and could only open a crack. That room gave us all the creeps. From what we could make out, there was a rocking chair and what looked like a body under the sheets on the bed. It freaked us out, but we figured it was fake and didn't dwell on it. We'd seen everything, so we headed back downstairs to see if we could leave. The mom saw us coming down and snapped, "What? You're already done? We paid to be here. Go look around some more and make it worth it." I'm sure we all rolled our eyes like typical preteens, but we trudged back up the stairwell anyway. That's when things got weird. Stuff had changed in just a few minutes since we'd gone downstairs. One of the boys called us over. "Hey, look at this." We checked it out. The canopy curtains in the master bedroom, which had been tied up, were now hanging down, and so were the regular curtains. We exchanged confused looks. None of us had seen anyone go in there, and we'd all been in sight of each other the whole time. Then we noticed the papers in the kids' room. They'd been blank before, but now they were covered in crayon scribbles. We huddled up, quizzing each other, but no one could have done it. We'd all been together. Then one of the girls pointed to the glass case with the wedding dress. The gloves inside had been flipped around. Our stomachs dropped. No one could have moved those from behind the glass. We stood there silent until I piped up, "If something's different in every room, what about the dark one?" I pointed to the end of the hall. A hush fell over us. We shuffled toward it, sticking close together. Since I'd brought it up, they made me the brave one. We stood at the door, peering in, but it was too dark to see past the bed and rocking chair. I untied the twine and pushed the door open wider. It was like an old nursing room. Surgical tools on a table at the back. The rocking chair faced us, just a cushion tied to it, so you could see no one was behind it. The bed was off to the right, with that creepy lump still under the sheets. We were too spooked to step inside. I turned, grabbed a pencil from the table by the bookshelves, and chucked it at the lump. It hit with a soft thud, like plastic, maybe a mannequin. We all let out a relieved breath. But that relief didn't last. The rocking chair, which hadn't been touched, started rocking slowly back and forth. We froze, eyes locked on it. Then, out of nowhere, this gaunt, bony, yellowish hand slid up from behind the chair's top. It couldn't have been there. We'd seen right to the back, but it gripped the edge, fingers bending. Before we could even process it, we screamed and bolted down the hall. As we ran through the stairwell, it wasn't blue anymore. Rust patched the walls. We raced out of the building, down the ramp, and collapsed by a tree outside, gasping. We started asking each other. Yep, all 5 of us saw that hand. The mom came out, annoyed. What happened? We tried explaining, stumbling over each other when the lady from the counter stepped outside. She hesitated, then cut in. "You didn't see something, did you?" We stared at her, stunned. She went on. "I was about to take my break, but I might as well tell you, that room's a replica of something real. An old lady was dying of a disease up there, and that's where they kept her till she passed. Sometimes when I'm alone downstairs, I hear footsteps in the hall, and when I'm in that room changing the sheets, with my back to the door, I feel it standing there, watching, waiting for me to turn around. I never do." We got out of there fast after that. I'm 40 now, and that day still sticks with me. It's never left.